Thanks, everyone. I will invite the speakers to come up. I'll ask them to introduce themselves briefly. Thank you for having me here. Aurelien, the CEO of Bizao.
Yes. Thank you.
Anzelle from SEM Media. Riccardo from MCP. Excellent. The topic today is going to be the future of payments. So whilst I'd like to say I'm an expert, I'm definitely not. I sit on the other side and pretend to be a financial advisor. These are the real people in the mix, the operator, security provider, digital content providers. So we're going to sit down, we'll have a chat about that for about 30 minutes. We're going to have Q&A or no Q&A, just we'll open it up Q&A, and I think I'll look to James to keep the time. So thanks for everybody. Aurelien, if I may ask you just to maybe do a 1-minute introduction, who you are, your company, and then as part of that introduction, if you could just give us a sense of, as you see it as an operator, future of payments, where are we now, where are we going in terms of business models?
That's all in 1 minute.
No, the intro is 1 minute.
Okay.
Bullet points. Okay.
All right. So hello, everyone. Glad to be here today, and thank you for MEF invitation. So I'm Aurelien Duval-Delort, for those who can pronounce that. For the others, it's going to be Aurelien Duval-Delort. It's fine as well. So I'm French, I come from Paris, and I used to work at Orange, so the telecom company, and then I created Bizao out of Orange. So it's fintech, specialized in Africa, and we are a payment hub covering currently mostly Francophone Africa, and we offer payment options to any company or banking institution, enabling access to all local payment options. So it's like, I don't know, a Stripe or a Flutterwave or something like that, but dedicated to Francophone Africa.
Thanks, Aurelien. So I'm Anzelle Robertson. I head up business development for Sub-Saharan Africa for SEM Media. We are a digital content provider, and we specialize in educational and entertainment services, which we bring to millions of mobile users across the continent, typically monetized via carrier billing or mobile wallets. So we would work together with the likes of Bizao and other payment aggregators and some of the network operators in the room, on the one hand, to bring products to consumers on the ground, but on the other hand, to bring quality, data-driving digital content services to carriers throughout the continent.
Hi, everybody. Riccardo. I work for a company called MCP. We're a media monitor and compliance company with a anti-fraud solution, really focused on mobile carrier billing. We operate globally. Our core focus is to protect user journeys, to protect revenues, and to protect consumers.
Thanks. And maybe, Aurelien, to kick it off, as we think about financial inclusion and the role of the ecosystem, particularly the mobile ecosystem in financial inclusion, where do you see the business models evolving to? What are the current problems? What do you see them evolving to?
Short answer, I guess. Yeah. Those are big questions. So I won't be able to speak about the whole continent, because although I traveled a lot, I'm kind of more specialized in the Francophone market. But what I see on the ground, and we have affiliates in Dakar, Abidjan, Douala, is that well, everybody or most of the people have access to a phone, even a very simple phone. People can place calls, whether it's a bit expensive, but it's okay. Some of them have data, and then let's say 50% of the Francophone market, to some extent, has access to mobile money as well. So that provides several opportunities in terms of financial inclusion. remember when people were exchanging airtime as a payment option, and then mobile money kicked in to replace that, because of course airtime is not necessarily a payment method between people, but still it is heavily used as carrier billing right now by telecom operators and by the likes of Bizao and some media and all the industry. At the same time, it doesn't allow people to subscribe to financial services. It's not a mean of payment when you need to pay your electricity bill or stuff like that. So mobile money is, of course, the right enabler for that. But there are some hurdles on the still pending on this, like regulatory issues. Typically, you cannot hold more than 2 million francs CFA, which is 3,000 euro on a mobile money account. It could look like it's a lot of money for many people, but to some extent, when you're a small company, it's nothing. So it's not a tool that it can be used for SMEs. Typically, that's a big issue. Mobile money needs to be used heavily by companies. And also in this region, there's so many countries that we all need to facilitate cross-border payment, but so far regulation is preventing that as well. So I mean, I hear a lot about cross-border commerce, but that's not going to happen just through the internet. I mean, payment gateways need to be enabled as well. So I think we're at a key moment for the history of payments in Africa. There's a lot of stuff that can be done, but the whole industry needs to work together: telecom industry, bank, regulators, and smaller private players like ourselves, who are basically doing a heavy job on a daily basis, with a lot of success, honestly. But still, I mean, the opportunity is huge. And millions of people are still, counting on us to deliver the right services and to provide loans and stuff like that. So there's a big challenge.
And I think maybe just to pick up on a slightly different topic, but to see if the pain points are the same when you think about what you experience on the digital content side working with Bizao. Where do you see your challenges, and where should the industry be going?
Yes, I think traditionally, actually before I answer that, can I just say, having been coming to AfricaCom for a couple of years and having been attending various events globally, it's so cool to see so many faces that I've only ever seen in Spain and in Berlin and in London, actually in Cape Town. That's bloody awesome. Well done. Thank you. Thank you for coming to Africa. Thank you for coming to Cape Town. Please continue to do that. Bring your family, tell your friends, and welcome and enjoy. So yeah, on that note, in terms of opportunity, it's clear. I think we're all on the same page in terms of what the opportunity is. In terms of the challenges, I think operators throughout the African continent, if we're talking about direct carrier billing as a payment mechanism, there's a lot of education to be done there. So from a Samedia point of view, despite my focus being on Africa, we operate in 42 markets globally, and what we see across Europe and especially Southeast Asia is operators, and Germany is a good example. Many of us were just in Berlin at the Global Carrier Billing Summit, where the German carriers actually had a presentation together, and the carriers, were promoting to us, the digital content providers, carrier billing as a payment opportunity. They were telling us, bring your content, bring your services, we've got an efficient payment method for you. I feel in Africa we have a way to go there, where as digital content providers, as payment aggregation providers, we need to enter that discussion and that dialogue with network operators to show, using the seamlessness of carrier billing, and using the accessibility of mobile wallets, we can deliver content to the African consumer. We're talking about financial inclusion, but we can include them digitally in the digital world by offering these payment methods. And I think it's not at lack of or at want of willingness. It's simply, in some instances, at lack of or at want of knowledge. And I think what we try to do together with the likes of Aurelien is what we like to do is to show use cases of what we do in other markets and not saying by no means that it's a copy-paste, because you can't copy-paste what you're doing in Europe, what you're doing in Southeast Asia and Africa, but by showing this is the method available, this is the payment method available, how can we make that work, how can we mold and shape that for the African consumer and for the African space. And I think that's a challenge, but again, seeing the amount of people in this room and seeing the enthusiasm in this room, I think that's something we can address together, and we should.
Yeah, and I think, Riccardo, maybe just picking up on that and still sticking to the challenge theme, how much of it is driven by concerns around the risks associated with mobile operators taking a different path, or is it a mindset thing?
No, it's a definite risk. I mean, from a consumer journey perspective, your mobile payments, generally on the carrier side, are very easy to do. So it's a very easy mechanism for somebody to take money out of a user's airtime balance. And that creates complexity for the operators because they need to manage security on the one side, user experience on the other side, and ensure that consumers are protected in that journey. So it's a constant struggle in a lot of markets that there has been abuse. Security is becoming a very important factor for any mobile operator focusing on mobile money, focusing on any kind of remittance. But the operators are starting to embrace it. Every operator has got a strategy around security now. And it needs to happen to ensure that there's peace of mind with the users that are going to be using the services.
And in this journey, so you spoke about MNOs in certain markets, Europe coming together, the ones pushing carrier billing. In the context of, based on what you know here, is it a regulator first move or should it be an operator first move?
So I'm maybe biased, but I evangelize this all over the place, but I'm such a fan of the South African model, which is the WASPA, the Wireless Application Service Providers Association of South Africa model, where we're self-regulatory and we're made up out of exactly the people that make up the ecosystem. So it's network operators, content providers, payment aggregators. And we self-regulate the space, and by doing that, we've become, over the years and years, very fluent in wearing those two hats, balancing consumer protection on the one side and consumer education, but industry knowledge on the other. So as far as DCB is concerned, and I guess at some point we'll venture into the mobile wallet space because that's definitely picking up in South Africa, and what's the difference between a landing page advertising a Momo payment or advertising a premium SMS payment, so I guess we'll get there. But by having this hybrid model of having the actual people that are on the ground, hands-on, that comprise this industry, having these people self-regulate and educate, that's paved the way for a model that's been copied globally. I mean, we've seen the Dutch regulator take clauses exactly from the South African Regulators Code of Conduct. We've seen WASPAG in Ghana take clauses exactly from the Code of Conduct. So I don't think it's a regulator problem, speaking about South Africa particularly. And I think in markets where it's not untapped yet, in market where there isn't a regulatory presence yet, it should be up to us. It should be up to us that comprise the industry to go and establish these regulators and establish these self-regulatory bodies and go, you know what, mobile payments are taking place. Before it gets completely out of hand, before we have, I don't know, government step in or whatever, no offense to government, but let's get together, let's self-regulate, let's create a landscape in which we can also thrive but also protect.
And Aurelien, I think the world is moving more and more towards interoperable business models. I guess the question becomes, how do you, and you picked up on trade, intra-country trade, how do you see the ecosystem working together to facilitate trade on the current rails, mobile rails or otherwise?
I mean, first of all, what I discovered here is that there's still a big divide between the Anglophone and the Francophone world in Africa. So that's a big issue, because in West Africa, you have Ghana sitting in the middle of Francophone Africa, then you have Nigeria close next door, and there's really not enough exchanges. And one of the reasons is the payment railways are not interconnected. So from a central bank perspective, I don't think there are a lot of conversations happening, because they're already far too busy setting up their own local scene. However, private players can work together and provide these kind of bridges, making sure that the Nigerian company can accept payments from Ivory Coast or vice versa, as long as the regulator is permitting, of course, foreign exchange with, there's currency issues, currency rate issue, but to some extent it's doable. And I think private sector is clearly moving very fast currently in Africa in the payment industry. Regulators are either trying to follow closely or just watching, depending on the countries. But it's, given the map of Africa, there's no way around. We need to find a quick solution, because if sometimes you look at India and you say, okay, that's more or less the same kind of GDP and population size, but it's a lot easier for one government and one central bank to regulate this country and say, hey, for a minimum amount of, I don't know, let's say 500, for $500, you need to pay digitally. That's what they say, something like that, and then everybody had to abide by the law. And here it's 42 countries, so before that kind of rule is set up among the whole continent, you can wait for some time. So private actors, private companies need to work together, and I think that kind of conference and all this conference happening right now in Cape Town is really helping. People are bridging the gap between Anglophone, Francophone, and seeing opportunities to help everybody expand to more countries. Cross-border business in Africa is clearly the best economic driver of the next years, I guess.
And I guess as a fintech company, do you see your role and the role of other fintechs to be the ones theoretically leading the charge in breaking down these barriers and then getting the incumbents to come along, because you're a lot more agile? You can solve a lot more of these pain points a lot quicker.
Well,
controversial.
Yeah, it's, Bizao is only 3 years old, so we are a small new player somehow. But at the same time, we already cover 200 million customers with our payment coverage. I used to get Orange, and Orange is basically covering, I think, 40 million customers with mobile money. So I'm like, in 3 years we're able to cover much more, and it's just the beginning. So we're targeting 500 million customers for 2025. So. And the likes of Flutterwave, Cellulant, Paystack, all those guys, they are doing the same, and they're already much bigger than Bizao in terms of at least valuation. I don't know about number of customers they cover, but and so you can see that even the market investors are betting on us to build a new payment railways, and I think it's it's part of our mission, but we are not doing this alone because we rely on telcos for the payment methods, or we rely heavily on banks to make those transactions available, and then nothing's happening without merchants. So it's really a whole ecosystem where you have international, local merchants, aggregators, banks, operators, and regulators, and everybody needs to play together. So for the past 3 years, I've been seeing a lot of progress, honestly, so I'm super excited for the future. But as I said, the challenges are also heavy, so we need to have those conversations, lay down everything that's complex, and probably find solutions. Yeah.
Okay. Can I open it up for Q&A for a few minutes, if anybody has a question?
Any questions from anybody? Could you could introduce yourself and your question and go for it?
Yes, my name is Tejo, and my question is around from UCT. Yeah, University of Cape Town. Cool.
Nice.
My question is, talking about financial inclusion, what are some of the policies that banks have that we should get rid of?
That's a good question.
So, access to capital, access to loans, what are some of the policies that are irrelevant 2022 going forward?
I think one thing that banks can learn from, if you talk about financial inclusion and learnings, and I'll hand over to you shortly, but we can look at mobile wallet payment transaction history. We can look at small businesses in Kenya and Ghana and Tanzania and Uganda, whatever, even South Africa, using Momo and M-Pesa to receive their daily cash in, to cash out daily. Why can that not be used to create a credit history? Why can that mobile wallet transaction history not yet be used to build credibility in order to receive loans for your small business? So it's not my area of expertise, but it's the first thing that comes to mind is the data is already there. Are banks and financial institutions using this data optimally to open up other avenues based on what that data shows?
I think you've got a conundrum of different markets that you need to look at. So South Africa is still very unique in where it sits from a banking perspective. We do have a big bank market. So is there an opportunity for South Africa to change? Well, we've seen a few of the network operators try that to varying success, or not having any success. In Africa, where we are seeing a big prevalence of this, is taking the traditional mold of how banks work and throwing it out the door. Your mobile ecosystem, your mobile wallets, they have completely changed how countries operate. You look at the classic example of a country like Kenya, where at least 70, well no, that's a bit higher, it's about 40 to 45% of banking transactions are actually happening on M-Pesa. I remember a couple of years being in Kenya where M-Pesa went down and the whole economy just came to a complete grinding halt. But it's what you can learn in how they've done these solutions, how they do their distribution, how they look at users. And the operators have got a very different approach to a client compared to a bank. And I think that's where the operators have won a lot, is by focusing on what they understand about using a cell phone as a communication device, to then enabling that person to move into their mobile wallet environment. And a lot of the mobile wallets that we're seeing in markets are being driven in combination with the banks, but a large percentage of it is coming through from the mobile operators initiative.
Well, I don't know much about South Africa, but where we see that happening a lot in the French-speaking countries. It's the high penetration of mobile money. Is close to 60% now. I think there's been a 40% year-on-year growth in last year in countries like Côte d'Ivoire or Senegal. That's really amazing, and I mean the banks look at that and they just don't believe the figures. You know, it's nothing that they've seen before. But now they're realizing that it's also an asset that they can use to change a little bit the way they address the market. So we are helping a lot of banks right now to connect to the mobile money network, so that people who have a bank account can, switch their money from mobile money to banks and vice versa. Also, they can reload their Visa, MasterCard with mobile money. So the bridge, is coming, and all of that is doing what? Is creating, as you said rightly, credit history at some point. So whether or not the banks are going to, do the extra mile and start allowing, their branch to give the loans or microloans, I don't know, but there is a good example in Côte d'Ivoire right now. It's Orange Bank Africa, who is doing that, exactly doing that. I mean, they're using mobile money history, and they're just providing microloans with, I think, quite a small unpaid rate, which is something like 4% now. So that's the first example of digital bank. Of course, it's coming from the telco again. So, but I think this is exactly what they should all do. I mean, banks, telcos, or microfinance. Everybody should open up the door to microloans at least, because otherwise, millions of people who are stuck. I mean, without a loan, how do you start consuming more? It's the basis. And it's the same for consumers, and it's the same for SMEs. I mean, how do you invest without a loan? And sometimes the bank will ask you to give, to provide as much as you are actually asking for as a counterpart. So it's like, okay, you don't want to give me anything.
Okay.
So yeah.
Sorry to cut you
Sorry,
off,
I'm a bit long, but I'm always.
We're running out of time. We have another question round the corner here. Was it you yourself?
Okay. My name is Onesu from a company called Yellow.Africa. We are a Pan-African content distributor, aggregator, operating in about 10 African markets. My question, I think, is directly related to what, sorry, I forgot the lady's name, and also the, the gentleman from MCP, what the lady was saying about being a self-regulatory and sort of like ecosystem. To say, I think from what we see across the continent, I think in here we've got mobile operators, we've got content aggregators, we've got payment providers, we've got anti-fraud solution providers, but one key component that we do not have in the room, maybe in here, is marketing, and that's where a lot of the fraud comes from. So I just wanted to find out from what you have seen in other regions, in LATAM, in Europe, in Southeast Asia, what can we do? Because I think in here, it's in our best interest to protect consumers, but the guy who does the marketing, as long as he gets those impressions or those clicks or that acquisition, because he's paid for that, he doesn't really care. You can place your ad on for a kid's game on and outside, or vice versa, and things like that. They do all sorts of things because that's where their bread comes from. So just wanted to find out from you what you have seen in other regions and how you have kept that problem. Thank you.
Yeah,
You seem to ego.
okay. I mean, again, it comes down to the value chain and who stands to lose out in that marketing channel. Operators are starting to see the reputational harm for that person doing marketing that completely destroys their brand. So that person might be marketing a content service on some dodgy website. At the end of the day, that user still belongs to the mobile network. The money is still deducted from his mobile airtime related to that mobile network. So what we're seeing in markets like Asia, in markets like the Middle East, the operators are taking a much harder line on compliance on the marketing journey. So putting in anti-fraud flows is one component. Using platforms like ourselves to monitor the internet. And in severe cases, completely cutting out affiliate marketing. Saying if you want to do marketing, you've got to go through premium channels like a Google, like a Facebook, which can be detrimental to a marketing environment. I mean, a couple of years ago, it was very difficult to run a Google campaign in a market like Ghana, in a market like Kenya. You generally would need to go to an affiliate marketing to do that kind of stuff. I think where the market is evolving to, though, is there is an opportunity for everybody to play a role in marketing services. But it's the transparency from where that service is coming from that's going to become very important. And just to go into that in a bit more detail, affiliate marketing, the biggest challenge that companies face at the moment is you don't know where the source comes from. But you go look at a premium partner like Google, and they give you the source where the traffic is coming from. What we're going to see is a gradual evolution that if the affiliate partners want to play in that space, they've got to start passing the source information. It will add more transparency to the industry, and we'll just see more opportunities to do good marketing.
Okay, Riccardo, thank you very much. We need to close this up very, very soon, but we have one more question, the last question from this panel over here.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Moses. Thanks, guys, for us. Quite brief, but very informative. I think on my side, I just have one question around cross-border. I think in Africa, I think it's safe to say it's easier to move from here to Mozambique as a person than moving money from here to Mozambique. Because like, it's just like very difficult to take your money across than you moving across. So as a result, you just stash the cash at the back of your pants and just move across. But I think that's solely because of the foreign exchange risk. You look at banks, they just charge whatever conversion rates that they want to charge in terms of when you convert the currency. I think one recent one is when I've seen like between Namibia and Botswana, you just move across with your ID now, but I don't think that's the case when it comes to the cash. So I just want to ask, in terms of the regulations, is there like a direct approach in terms of just saying, how do we simplify moving money across Africa? Because like, as things stand, we are like in a serious catastrophe whereby banks are charging high conversion rates, interest rates, and foreign exchange rates, I mean. And while at the same time, they excluded people, basically, like, for instance, if I move from Zimbabwe to South Africa to look for a job, like moving money across, it's tough. Entities like Guru, they charge like 8.5%. So whatever I move across, they take 8.5%. So like, is there a deliberate approach in terms of like just solving for cross-border and telling ourselves that, you know what, let money move like the same manner in which like human beings basically move across the border? Is there like a proper deliberate approach? Is there a company that is serious enough to solve that African problem?
Well, what a question. How do we answer that one?
All right, so,
short answer,
I'll
please.
give it a crack, and then I'll let our esteemed panelists add. So at this stage, there isn't one company that's trying to solve the problem. I think various players in the ecosystem are approaching it from different angles, all trying to drop the cost to serve to be able to move money across. You know, at a governmental level, there's PAPS, which is part of the African Free Trade Agreement. I think it's called the Pan-African Payment System. Clearly that's one mechanism that people are trying to use to solve this. It's right now started in West Africa, it's launching across, and people are building different use cases, and they're talking to various governors of reserve banks, various reserve banks to link up. Then there are various fintech companies that are also looking at that problem, and different mobile operators are looking at it. I think clearly at the end of the day, it's a complicated problem because it also has to deal with the reserves for each country, the exchange rates, right now, most transactions have to cross the dollar before they come back. And that's a real pain point because it increases the cost to serve. And so they're trying to solve for that. But it's not, that it goes into also monetary policy, et cetera, and obviously countries' sovereignty in terms of controlling their own interest rates and inflation and currency. But the problem is being looked at. Is it going to be solved in 5 years, in 10 years? TBD. And both fintech players, I know mobile operators are looking at it, governments are looking at it to find the best way to deal with the problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can we have a hand of applause for our esteemed
thank you very much.
Thank you for all the insight, and thank you for having us.